Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bite Size Nutrition Podcast. I'm Jillian, and today we are talking a little bit about how to define what's right for you, especially in this time of year where there is so much outside noise, especially around weight loss and fitness and what your body should look like and what you should do to take care of yourself. And so, depending on your social circle, like in real life, and depending on your social media algorithm, you might have a shit ton of people talking about weight loss and dieting and getting in shape and blah, 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 blah. And this episode is not about convincing you to diet or not to diet. This episode is going to help you build more self trust in yourself so that you can choose how you want to live your life, even when there is a lot of that like external noise, right? Because really, my goal with this podcast is to help you build trust in yourself to make choices about your life. Make choices about food, make choices about your body. And so, specifically, because I know this episode is coming out in January or the end of December, I'm not really sure. Anyways, whenever you're listening to it, you probably will go on social media and see so many people pushing different diets or cleanses or blah, blah, blah. And it's important for you to be able to make those choices for yourself. And you might have heard me say self trust on episodes before. And the definition is trust in yourself, which is a stupid rhetorical definition. You're like, okay, great. So I trust in myself. So I want to actually give you an example of what this looks like from my own life. And so one of my close friends a while back had lost a bunch of weight and people noticed. They would comment to me about it. I would hear about it all the time. And obviously, I saw how her body had changed. She would say things like, oh, I have to buy new pants. Right? Like it was very obvious, right? And so it had crossed my mind back then that, maybe I should lose some weight. Like she's getting all of this positive feedback. People are paying attention. She looks beautiful. And so I started thinking, well, maybe I should cut back on what I eat, or maybe I could add in more cardio to my workouts. And I thought about, hey, it would be really nice to get some of those compliments. But this is where the self-trust comes in because I noticed these thoughts and I noticed this urge kind of coming up. And instead of just reacting to that urge and sort of taking these thoughts as, well, now I need to do something about it, I stopped and I checked in with my core values. And I really thought about my values and how I'm currently living my life. And I asked, if I were to pursue fat loss, would it actually be the right thing for me to do? Would doing that actually fulfill me or support my well being and happiness? And because I checked in with myself and I actually thought about, well, I really like the way that I'm eating now. It's really comfortable. I'm not thinking about food very much. I'm not being obsessive about my workouts. And I thought, hey, if I were to change how I eat or maybe reduce some things or pay a little bit more attention to my nutrition, it would mean that I'm thinking about food more. It would probably mean that I'm kind of obsessing about my body a little bit more and maybe picking it apart or just being more hyper aware of my body. And because I was able to check in with my values and check in with how I'm living my life and how I feel in my life, I was able to recognize and kind of separate, oh, I'm seeing this sort of positive feedback for this person, but I don't need that kind of positive feedback because I get positive feedback about my life because I give it to myself. I get it from my partner. I get it from my friends. I get it from my dog, get it from the activities that I do in my clients. And so while it was okay for me to recognize like, ooh, I am feeling the desire to maybe, lose a little bit of weight, I can actually use self-trust to say, no, that is not the right fit for me and my life right now. And because I trust in my decisions, I can hear people say these nice things about my friend. I can, see her enjoy that attention, and that's fine. I can sit with the slight discomfort of being like, I like that attention, and also know that pursuing weight loss right now is not the right fit for me because of what it would mean for me in my life. And some people might hear this and be like, but you can lose weight without thinking about food more. And that's totally fine. I know myself. And if I were to reduce or start to put limits on myself, that's when I would think about food more. And that is me showing myself that self-trust. And I trust in this choice because when I look inwards, I am doing perfectly fine. And it's okay that I have these desires to be recognized for my physical appearance, totally fine. But I also feel pretty good about my physical appearance because I don't rely on other people to reinforce that. And basically, I came down to this realization that if I were to pursue fat loss, it's actually not going to make my life better. It is not going to contribute to me being the kind of person I want to be. It would simply satisfy that urge to get some more external validation. But this isn't the real point of the episode. I did want to share this because this is how I practice self-trust, and it has taken many years. A lot of the practices that I do in my life or a lot of the work that I've done is a lot of work that I also share with clients because it's all evidence-based, backed by a lot of the research that we have around disordered eating and around body image, and around understanding kind of what approach to eating is supportive for our bodies. But the point of this is learning to trust yourself is about doing what's right for you, even when those outside pressures are all around, right? And so you might feel a lot of outside pressure. You might see like, ooh, this person is like showing off a before and after photo, or you might, read a testimonial, or you might see pictures of someone and be like, ooh, I like what they look like. But I want to give you a little bit of an insight into nutrition coach marketing school because a lot of this outside pressure is from like marketing. A lot of it may be from other individuals in your social circle that maybe have bought into some of this marketing, or maybe they're not at a point where they're actually thinking about how do I build trust within myself. They're thinking more about how do I get that external validation. But some insight into nutrition coach marketing bullshit school 101 is nutrition coaches, we are told to play into your pain points. We are told over and over again by marketing experts that we should think about your pain points and the things that you are suffering with, and we should play into that in our marketing, right? So that means that if you are feeling uncomfortable in your clothing, we're supposed to highlight that and talk about how we can make you feel better by helping you lose weight, right? But here's the thing is you get to choose what is right for you. But we need to understand how to develop the criteria to do so. And as I said, I know it's really hard when there's so many like transformation photos and before and afters and these really tempting promises that people are selling you about what might happen when you lose the weight. And you might even see it like my experience with my friend where you see people commenting on people's weight loss. But this is where you get the opportunity to actually listen to that voice in your head. The voice in your head that's like, I don't know if I want to do that. Or like, actually, the last time I did that, I felt worse. Or like, when I was really focused on dieting, my life felt so small because that's all I thought about. And maybe you do get to say, actually, it is important to me. Maybe I want to like start pursuing taking a little bit better care of myself, and maybe that does include a little bit of weight loss, and that's totally fine. The point is, you get to decide what that looks like for you. And this is where kind of the problem is, how do you know when it's outside pressure versus something you actually want and will genuinely support you in becoming the kind of person you want to be? So I have kind of 4 steps here that I've come up with that I think can be really helpful for you when you're working on building this self-trust. So the first is to start with your core values. And if you're like, what are my core values? Episode 90, I think it's 91 or 92 of this podcast, walks through core values. And I'm sharing a values guide, just a couple really simple questions to help you define your values and a list of values in the show notes. So you can download that. You can enter your email and download that and get started actually thinking about what are my values and then how do I use them to make choices. So go, show notes, download, you got it. So the first step is to start with your values. The next step is to identify what is it that I'm telling myself I want, and does it align with those values? So if I were to pursue this thing that I actually want, does it align with the values that I know are truly important for me? Does it align with my North Star, right? The next step is to consider, how will pursuing this goal affect affect your well-being. So maybe you're like, hey, actually, it aligns with my values. Now we get to go a level deeper and actually say, well, if I were to pursue this thing or to make these changes, how will it affect my well-being? And you get to be really honest with yourself, right? And when I say well-being, I mean your whole, like, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about food, the way you interact with people, right? And then the final step is to determine what actually will move you closer towards being the person that you want to be. And this is really powerful because when you have your core values as a guide, you get to ask, well, okay, I want to be, for example, I'll share my core values. My core values are connection, curiosity, creativity, and freedom. And so if I think about weight loss, I can think about, okay, well, will losing weight or pursuing weight loss actually improve my connection? And no, it will give the illusion because people might comment on my body, but that's not true connection, right? Does it align with curiosity? I don't know if it's really like here nor there when it comes to curiosity. Will pursuing weight loss align with my value of creativity? Probably not, just because like if I'm thinking about food, my brain isn't like pursuing creative pursuits. If I'm dieting or slightly hungry, if I go to my improv class, I probably won't have as creative a brain because I don't have as much like food energy. So probably not. I also it would limit my creativity in the kitchen, probably because I like to bake and I like to cook fun things. And then does it align with my value of freedom? Well, I have the freedom of choice whether I want to pursue this or not. But I also like the freedom of being able to say yes to like a spontaneous dinner date or, yes when someone offers me food. And if I were to pursue fat loss, I probably would have to change that. And right now, that's not something that I feel like really aligns with my values. So that is kind of how I I recommend you doing that because it can be really powerful when you start looking at it from the sort of frame of values. And if you're still unsure and you're like, oh, I don't really know, like I'm kind of on the fence, you can ask yourself this. If people around me were not pursuing this or promoting this or achieving this, would I still care about achieving this thing? And I want to leave you with a couple things to consider here. It's totally fine to want to lose weight. It's totally fine to want to change what your body looks like, and it's okay to pursue that. But I would really encourage you go through this kind of four-step process and check in with yourself and identify like is making the changes I would need to make to how I eat or to how I exercise in order to lose body fat, is that really going to support my well-being right now? And maybe you're like, actually, no, I really need to work on my relationship with food first. I need to be in a more neutral place with food before I try to restrict myself again. That's perfectly fine. If you're saying, hey, actually, I know that I've been like eating in a really disorganized way. I haven't really been planning my meals. And actually, planning my meals would probably reduce my calorie intake and it would be a way to support myself. Then maybe it is aligned with your values, right? So much of this is the intention behind it. Is the intention coming from a place of wanting to control or change myself to like please others or to like satisfy some need for validation? Or is it coming from a place of like, I truly want to take care of myself? And in doing that, it may be aligned with a little bit of body changes, right? And we know that if you make this choice from a place of like wanting to fit in, wanting to get attention, wanting to feel accepted, wanting to have control over your body, the weight loss is not going to solve the problem. We know this. And if you're in a negative place with food or you're feeling really down about your body right now, pursuing a diet is likely going to make this worse. But what you can do is consider like what are changes that are going to be positive for my well-being regardless of my weight. And I gave you an example before. I was like, let's say you haven't been cooking at home at all because life has been crazy. You've been living off snacks. Then maybe cooking more at home might align with like a little bit of you end up eating a little bit less because you're cooking at home, less oils, things like that. But also it's coming from a pursuit of I actually want to take care of myself better, or maybe I want to save money or whatever. So like I said, intention matters. And if you are ready to start using your values to guide your choices and build your self-trust with food, with decision making, with defining what a balanced approach to eating and exercise looks like for you, I do have one-on-one coaching spots open for January. And my coaching page on my website is in the show notes. You can learn more about how I can help you there. And you can shoot me a message through the contact form on my website. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram at Bite Size Nutri. And I offer a free 30-minute Zoom chat for anyone who would like to learn more about coaching, understand a little bit more about the process. And in those calls, we also talk about kind of what would a path forward look like for you, regardless of coaching. So whether or not you end up signing up for coaching, you're going to leave with more clarity on what's best for you and more optimism about, ooh, actually, like this is possible for me. So, with that, if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and share it with anyone you think needs to hear this, especially if people are maybe in your environment feeling pressure to do things and they're not sure if it's right for them. Go ahead and send this episode their way. And with that, I will go ahead and see you again next time.